I spent 4 years with Huo Kixin without any official relationship, gave him a daughter, and in the end, he publicly claimed to be single and childless for the sake of his first love. I was heartbroken and ready to leave, but Lu Hengxuan, my childhood friend, got a vasectomy and said he would treat my daughter like his own. Huo Kixin suddenly realized he wanted to win me back? It's too late. I immediately went to get a marriage certificate with Lu Hengxuan, making him experience what true regret feels like. The heir to the Huo family, Huo Kixin, suddenly had his secret marriage and child exposed. He immediately made a public clarification. I watched Huo Kixin's handsome yet cold face on the screen. For a moment, I felt a strange, indescribable disorientation. He was cold by nature, known for being deep and calculating, his emotions always hidden. But unlike what people secretly speculated, he wasn't a workaholic, abstinent type. Huo Kixin had a high demand in that area. Before a business trip, he ignored my tears and pleas. He tied my wrists with a tie, pinned me down, and made love to me 4 times. Later, I couldn't resist biting his neck. There should still be teeth marks there. The tie he wore was a dark blue one with intricate patterns. A commemorative gift I personally picked out for our anniversary. It was the 4th year of our marriage. We had a lovely daughter. She had just turned 3. But now, my nominal husband, Huo Kixin, just coldly and sternly clarified in front of the media, there's no secret marriage, and no daughter. As everyone knows, I've been single all these years. He pushed up his gold-rimmed glasses, his dark eyes flashing a chilling light. It felt like his gaze cut right through the camera and landed coldly on my face. I advise some people with malicious intent to stop dreaming and embarrass themselves. After saying this, Huo Kixin suddenly stood up. His bodyguards and personal assistants immediately dispersed the crowd. They escorted him to the car and left the scene. I stiffly turned off the TV. The living room instantly fell into darkness. Only the floor lamp in the corner emitted a faint, cold light. Just then, I suddenly heard a low sob. I quickly turned around and saw my little daughter. Her face was covered in tears, looking both aggrieved and confused, standing there motionless. Tong Tong? I quickly got up and rushed over to hold her. Why aren't you sleeping? Why did you sneak downstairs? Tong Tong's wet face was buried in my chest. Her little lips trembled as she choked out. Mom, why did Dad say he doesn't have a daughter? If he doesn't have a daughter, then what am I? My heart tore at that moment. Huo Kixin was usually serious and reserved. Although he loved Tong Tong, he spent little time at home and never smiled much. Tong Tong adored him, but she was still a little afraid of him. Because of this, she was more sensitive than other children. As the tears started flowing again, it felt like the persistence I had been holding onto for all these years suddenly vanished and crumbled into dust. I gently wiped the tears off my daughter's face. Tong Tong, would you like to leave here with mommy? Where will we go? Will we ever come back home? I looked down and smiled. No, we won't. This is not our home. I looked at Tong Tong very seriously and answered. This is Uncle Huo's home. We've stayed here for a long time, it's time we left. Tong Tong nodded, not fully understanding, but answered in her baby voice. I'll follow mommy, wherever mommy goes. Good girl. I took her back to the room, kissed her little face affectionately. Sleep? Mommy's here with you. Tong Tong fell asleep. But my gaze fell on the picture frame on her nightstand. It was a family photo of the 3 of us. The only photo we had together. In the photo, Huo Kixin sat upright. His usual distant expression. I was holding 1-year-old Tong Tong, smiling shyly and happily. My body slightly leaning toward Huo Kixin. But he didn't lean toward me. Tong Tong was asleep. I got up and quietly took the frame, leaving the room. As I cut the photo, I suddenly realized. The gap between our bodies when the photo was taken was meant for today, so it could be easily cut apart along that line. A week later, Huo Kixin returned from his business trip. He came back at 10 p.m. If it was before, my daughter and I would have waited for him to get home. But tonight, Tong Tong had already finished her bath and was asleep. I wasn't in the master bedroom. I went to the guest room on the 2nd floor. When I heard the familiar sound of the car engine, I was on the room's balcony, staring at the message I received 6 days ago. The male sterilization surgery report. Opening it still brought a sting to my eyes, making me tear up. Manjun, if you're willing, just nod. I will treat Tong Tong like my own. From now on, she will be my only daughter, no, my only child. I stared at those few lines, reading them for a long time. Until the screen automatically went black. Until I heard Huo Kixin's footsteps upstairs. Until he came down from the 3rd floor master bedroom. He stopped outside the guest room where I was. Then knocked on the door. Manjun, open the door. I hastily wiped away my tears, pressing the phone under the pillow. I'm asleep, let's talk tomorrow. But before I could finish, the door was already opened by him from the outside. I was stunned for a moment, but quickly came to my senses. This was Huo Kixin's house, Huo Kixin's property. He naturally had full authority. Why did you move to the guest room? He seemed a bit displeased, his voice colder than usual. I slowly sat up and looked at him. After the long flight, he still had the fatigue on his face. As he spoke, he raised his hand and rubbed his brow. His voice sounded hoarse. I ignored the last trace of sympathy in my heart. Averting my gaze. I've not been feeling well these days, didn't want to infect you. I'm not bothered by that, move back. He said, seeing that I hadn't moved from the bed. His brow furrowed slightly. Manjun, I want to sleep. You should rest too. Huo Kixin didn't respond, walking straight to the bed. He bent down and, to my surprise, picked me up. It's been a week, don't you want to? He said, lowering his head to kiss me. But I turned my face away. He seemed surprised, and quickly his face showed displeasure. Joe Manjun, are you throwing a tantrum? We had been married for 4 years, and he had never been rejected by me. His needs were strong, except during my period or when he was away. We almost had sex every night. If it was before, after he was away for a week, I wouldn't have slept the entire night. But back then, I was happy, even blissful. Because only in bed did I feel like he liked me. Usually, I was afraid of him getting angry. But secretly, when we were intimate, I wanted him to get angry. Because when he was angry, his behavior in bed was a stark contrast to his usual self. Once, we had an argument. I went to stay with my best friend for a week and wouldn't come home. In the end, Huo Kixin came to pick me up in Hong Kong. That day, in the most luxurious suite in Hong Kong, he coldly unbuckled his belt with one hand. He pinned me against the huge floor-to-ceiling window. I cried until my throat was hoarse, but he didn't stop. At the end, he almost gritted his teeth and whispered in my ear. Joe Manjun, if you ever run away from home again, I'll make you regret it in bed. Your tears won't help. I think I have a bit of a BT side. His cold anger always easily touched me. I liked it when he lost control because of me. But now, it seemed like my body had closed off. It was calm, like still water. Just like my heart. I pulled away from his embrace. Huo Kixin, let's break up. I looked at him calmly, then suddenly gave a self-deprecating smile. We already have a child, and now I can only say we're breaking up. Huo Kixin and I, apart from a piece of paper. We don't even have a marriage certificate. He seemed stunned for a moment, then asked in a lowered voice. Is it because I clarified our marriage in front of the media? I wanted to say. It's not just because of the clarification. Maybe, if it were just the clarification, I could have found 100 reasons to comfort myself. But he denied our daughter's existence. For the past few days, whenever I close my eyes, I see the look of confusion and hurt in my daughter's eyes. I can't accept it. Yes, you also know that it was just a media response. Huo Kixin looked at me coldly and seriously. I'm busy. I don't have time to soothe your emotions over such small matters. I forced myself to stay calm and look at him. But my hand at my side couldn't stop shaking. My eyes felt like they were being pricked with needles, but I held back my tears. I don't need you to soothe me. I'm serious. The agreement we signed can be nullified. I only want Tong Tong. A flicker of mockery seemed to pass through Huo Kixin's eyes. You're using Tong Tong to force me, asking me to acknowledge you and her publicly? No, I've told you, this is impossible, at least for the next few years. Absolutely impossible. He interrupted sharply. Joe Manjun, there are many things I can tolerate from you, but this matter, there is no room for discussion. He looked down at me, as if I were someone completely unrelated to him. The room was comfortably warm, but I felt an overwhelming coldness. That chill seeped into my bones, making me shiver uncontrollably. Before our marriage, my best friend had subtly tried to advise me, but I carried a kind of reckless courage and wasn't afraid. Even if Huo Kixin were a stone, so what? One day, the water will wear through it, but now, I'm giving up. I want to be free, like water. I don't want to be the droplet that's confined under the eaves forever. Think carefully tonight. When you're sure, move back. Huo Kixin turned and left the guest room. The sound of the door closing was heavier than usual. It didn't match his usual calm demeanor. I covered myself with the blanket and closed my eyes. In a few days, Grandpa Huo would be back from his southern retreat. It was he who had decisively arranged my marriage with Huo Kixin. Once he nods, I can take Tong Tong and leave. The Huo family favors sons over daughters. Madame Huo hardly pays any attention to Tong Tong. She has a favored daughter-in-law in mind, so naturally, she dislikes me. Now, I want to leave the Huo family with my daughter, which seems to be exactly what they want. The next day, Madame Huo suddenly visited me. She first casually asked about Tong Tong, then wasted no time getting straight to the point. You must know about Huo Kixin's media clarification the other day. I nodded. Madame Huo smiled, clearly pleased. I didn't expect Huo Kixin to take things this seriously. Honestly, there are no secrets in this world, and rumors have been circulating for years, but Huo Kixin has always ignored them and never bothered to clarify. She raised an eyebrow. Who would have known that after hearing about Mo Ran's divorce, he immediately clarified his marriage to you? Madame Huo sighed on purpose. But what really surprised me was that he didn't even acknowledge Tong Tong. This child, she's really devoted. He's liked Mo Ran since he was a teenager, even after she got married. When he agreed to be with you, I thought he had moved on. I sat there quietly. But her words kept buzzing in my ears. She was right. Huo Kixin had never clarified such rumors before. This was the first time he made such a big deal of it. She also mentioned Zhang Moran, someone I knew well. She was one of Madame Huo's top choices for a daughter-in-law. Back then, she was already engaged and soon married. Whenever Huo Kixin and she met, there was never any sign of anything unusual. I had never connected the two of them. I didn't know that Huo Kixin had been in love with her for so many years. So when he agreed to marry me, it was probably only because the woman he loved had married someone else. Manjun, Madame Huo said, patting my hand with a smile. You've always been smart. You're nameless and without status, so it probably doesn't matter to you. But what about Tong Tong? Do you want her to live like you, always in the dark? Madame Huo left. The whole house was quiet. The flower petals under the trellis had withered and blown away. I took out my phone and opened the messages again, reading over and over the words. As long as you're willing, Tong Tong will be my only child from now on. As the tears slowly fell, I replied to Lu Hengchuan. Come pick me up. I don't want to stay in the Huo family anymore. I didn't wait for Grandpa Huo to come back. I started packing mine and Tong Tong's things, preparing to leave the Huo family. The servants, unsure of what to do, secretly called Huo Kixin. When he returned, the driver was just finishing unloading my last suitcase. Lu Hengchuan's plane would land in 3 hours. He would take me and Tong Tong away forever. I understood the feeling of losing a father from childhood. A little girl without a father is always bullied, always suffers more. I watched Huo Kixin get out of the car. His face was cold, standing in the dark blue night. His eyes, looking at me, were devoid of warmth. Tong Tong seemed scared, holding onto my neck tightly. I comforted her with a kiss and asked the servants to take her aside to play. After Tong Tong walked away, Huo Kixin came toward me. He frowned, his eyes showing a trace of impatience. Zhou Manjun, have I spoiled you too much these years? I smiled lightly and thanked him. Thank you for taking care of us these years. That was the truth. Aside from not loving me or our daughter, he hadn't treated us poorly. Think about it carefully. If you leave the Huo family, you and Tong Tong will have nothing. Then what are we in the Huo family? What else do you want that I haven't given you? Other than a title? Yes. I've had him for 4 whole years. In those 4 years, he hasn't been with any other woman. He even has such a cute daughter. Inside this house, I'm the lady of the house, as the servants call me. But outside that door, I'm just the plaything of the rich ladies. My daughter is just an illegitimate child who can't be seen in public. I can't even call her by her full name in public. Can't even say, Huo Yutong, aloud. I don't want anything anymore. I just want to leave the Huo family, take my daughter, and leave. Is that okay? Zhou Manjun, some things I only say once. Maybe it was my stubbornness that made him truly angry. His tone, colder than ever, was harsh. Now, pack up your and Tong Tong's things and move back. I'll pretend nothing happened. What if I say no? He stared at me. As soon as you step out of the Huo family's door, there will be no turning back. Before he finished speaking, his phone suddenly rang. I saw him glance at the phone. His furrowed brow seemed to relax slightly. He walked away to answer it. I could vaguely hear his voice soften. Don't worry, I'll be there soon. Okay, send me the address. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Huo Kixin hung up and walked toward the car. After a couple of steps, he seemed to remember me. He turned around, looked at me, and ordered the servants. Move their things back. Everything should be tidied up before I come home tonight. Then, his eyes fell back on me. You'll move back to the master bedroom tonight. You're not allowed to go to the guest room again. I didn't refuse. So Huo Kiksen thought I would obey. He didn't linger and left straight away. The servants smiled and spoke to me. Madam, please go back to your room. We'll take care of the things. They were about to bring my suitcase down from the car. But I stopped them. No need. We're leaving now. Madam, when Mr. Huo comes back, please tell him. I lowered my head, hiding the last trace of tears in my eyes. As he said, Tong Tong and I will never step back into the Huo family's door again. Madam, this can't be right. You know Mr. Huo's temper. He's always decisive. If you really leave, what will you do later? And little miss, she's still Mr. Huo's daughter. The servants kept urging me. I could see they were sincere. After all these years, we had a decent relationship. I'm easygoing and kind-hearted, so the Huo family treated me like the young mistress. I know his temper. I smiled and reassured them. That's exactly why I need to leave. This is the best opportunity. Huo Kiksen is angry and has just said, you can never step back into the Huo family again, and he's in a hurry to meet his lover. I'm leaving now, with everything in my favor. If I wait any longer, taking Tong Tong and leaving the Huo family won't be this easy. After all, Huo Kiksen is young, successful, and influential. His belongings and people are only his to decide. I know you're worried about me, and it's for my own good. Madam, couples don't hold grudges overnight. Is there something you and Mr. Huo can't discuss properly? Actually, we can all see that Mr. Huo really cares about you and Miss Tong. Yes, every time Mr. Huo returns from a business trip, the first thing he asks is, where are you? I couldn't help but lower my head and smile. This man, he's proud, arrogant, strong-willed, and so masculine. He craves desire but doesn't indulge in women. In fact, he has a bit of a fetish when it comes to women. That's why all these years, he's only had me. Because he knows me well, because I'm pure and clean. The first thing he asks when he comes home is where I am, but it's only to relieve his desires. I no longer fool myself into thinking he likes me at all. After all, men and women are different. Their sex and love have always been clearly separated. Thank you for your kindness, but this no longer matters to me. I didn't say more. I turned and picked up my daughter. Take care, everyone. The night was deep, and I didn't hesitate any longer. I walked quickly toward the car. Perhaps seeing my resolve, no one tried to stop me. As we got in the car, Tong Tong suddenly asked softly, Mom, does that mean I won't have a dad anymore? I kissed her soft cheek. Uncle Huo isn't your dad, but you'll have a dad who loves you very much in the future. The car started. Tong Tong leaned against the window, gazing outside. She had lived here since birth. Because her identity couldn't be shown to the public, she rarely went out. This house held so many of her memories, both happy and sad. Tong Tong, are you going to miss it? I looked at my daughter, and a wave of sadness hit me again. But Tong Tong shook her head. I was just thinking, I won't be able to bring my swing and little horse with me, but don't worry, you'll have new swings and new little horses in the future. Tong Tong threw herself into my arms. Daddy doesn't want me, so I don't want him either. No, it's Uncle Huo, not Daddy. I hugged her tightly, smiling as I agreed. Right, it's Uncle Huo, not Daddy. I raised my hand and quietly wiped away the tear on my eyelash. The grand house was left far behind the car. Soon, it was out of sight. When Zhang Moran came out in clean clothes, she still looked terrified. She stuck close to Huo Kiksen, not daring to leave his side. It's all over now, those people are gone, and they won't harass you again. Huo Kiksen saw her pale face and patiently spoke softly to reassure her. But Zhang Moran still clung to his sleeve. Kiksen, they'll come back, tonight. So many people were here, and they dared to humiliate me openly. Zhang Moran choked up as she spoke. They hate me so much. They won't let me go easily. She clung to his sleeve so tightly that one of the cufflinks was pulled off and fell into the spilled wine on the floor. Huo Kiksen frowned suddenly. He pushed Zhang Moran's hand away and bent down to pick it up. But Zhang Moran grabbed his hand first. It's already dirty, and it's not very expensive. I'll buy a new one to replace it for you. Huo Kiksen hesitated for 2 seconds, then pushed her hand away again. He picked up the dirty cufflink and wrapped it in a clean napkin, handing it to his assistant. Send it for cleaning. Zhang Moran's eyes, still filled with tears, seemed momentarily lost. But soon, she gave a bitter, beautiful smile. You treasure this so much. It must have been given to you by someone important. Is it Miss Zhou? Huo Kiksen didn't respond, just raised his wrist to check the time. It was already late, and he needed to go home. I'll have the driver take you back to rest. Keekson, it's been years since we last saw each other. Can we spend some time together tonight? Everyone's here, and it's rare for us to gather like this. Jong Moran finished speaking, and immediately someone else echoed her. Yeah, Keekson, it's rare that everyone's here tonight. Let's have a good time drinking. Huo Keekson didn't answer, but his mind wandered to Jo Manjun. They had been fighting and separated for a few days. They had been married for 4 years, and their daughter was 3 now. It was only now that he realized she had this stubborn side to her. His once peaceful and stable family, his obedient and perfect wife, had suddenly started to stir things up, affecting his mood. In fact, during the day at work, he had made a small mistake because of it. Huo Keekson thought he couldn't let it go on like this. He had spoiled Jo Manjun too much over the years. That's why she became so bold, going behind his back to leak their identity to the media, trying to force him to publicly acknowledge her and Tong Tong. He decided to cool off and let her think things through. She was getting too bold and reckless. Seeing this, Jong Moran quickly pulled him to sit down. The friends smartly opened some drinks. The atmosphere became more lively. Huo Keekson, in a good mood tonight, didn't refuse anyone. After a few rounds of drinking, he felt a little tipsy. Jong Moran brought him warm honey water. Are you getting a headache? Drink a little, it'll make you feel better. He looked at the woman in front of him. Time had sculpted her like a ripe cherry on a branch. More and more alluring. She was no longer the innocent girl she used to be. And looking at her now, Huo Keekson felt nothing in his heart. Instead, in his blurry vision, another face appeared. One full of joy and anger, delicate, and sometimes a little tearful. She would occasionally stir up ripples in his otherwise orderly life. Huo Keekson reached out to push her away, intending to stand up. It's too late. I have a meeting tomorrow. You guys continue having fun? I'll host another time. It's too late. Why don't you stay over? We've already prepared a room for you. Huo Keekson took his coat. I'm not used to staying outside. All these years, no matter how late it was, he always went home. Even if he had to stay outside, it was always at the nearest house. Jong Moran bit her lip, looking like she was about to cry. Keekson, do you really not want to see me? It's not like that. Don't overthink it. I was really happy when you clarified those rumors, but now it seems you don't dislike her that much. Huo Keekson looked up at her. I just don't like the outside world commenting on my family and private life. So, you might like her, right? Huo Keekson's voice suddenly became very cold. Do you think I'm the kind of person who's obsessed with love and relationships? His marriage and emotions, like his life and career, had always been rigorously planned. Even though there had been some unexpected changes. He married a woman he never intended to marry. But he quickly adjusted his rhythm. In his world, everything had to give way to his career, including his wife and child. Even if he had married Jong Moran, it would have been the same. But Huo Keekson raised his hand and pressed his aching forehead. He bypassed Jong Moran and left the private room. Recently, his emotions had been too affected by Jo Manjun, and he had allowed it to happen, without stopping it. What had he not given her, other than a marriage certificate? And yet, she had started a separation with him. He entered the elevator and opened his shirt collar, the alcohol rushing to his head, leaving him feeling hot. For a moment, he couldn't tell if he was really craving desire, or just dissatisfied with her needs. After all, before marrying her, he had no romantic thoughts at all, only work on his mind. The car drove into the gate. Only the servants were there to greet him. Huo Keekson, with patience, didn't ask where Jo Manjun was. He casually handed his coat over and went straight upstairs. He went to the guest room on the 2nd floor. He opened the door but didn't find her there. Huo Keekson relaxed, his anger dissipating. It seemed like she was clever and obedient. Softened and moved back to the master bedroom. Since she was obedient, he was willing to give her a reward. Maybe he would consider turning that agreement into a legal marriage certificate. Huo Keekson went up to the 3rd floor. The master bedroom door was closed. He walked over happily, ready to open it. As the door opened, the sleep light turned on. The large bed was neatly made, and it was empty. Huo Keekson stood at the door, his face turning dark. Seconds later, he went to the child's room. On the princess bed, there was no sign of little Tong Tong. Huo Keekson walked into his daughter's room. Everything was as it was, but it seemed like something was missing from the nightstand. He remembered there was a photo there. But now, the frame was gone. Huo Keekson opened the drawer. He immediately saw half of the photo turned upside down. It was clear that someone had cut it. He had a vague idea, and reached for it. Sure enough, the original photo of the three of them was now just him alone. The photo of her and Tong Tong had been cut out. Huo Kixin clenched the photo, his temples throbbing. It took a while before he turned and walked out of the room. Since she chose to leave the Huo family, she couldn't blame him for not warning her. If she ever wanted to return, it would be nearly impossible. The night was deep. Tong Tong was already fast asleep. The hotel was under the Liu family's ownership. The top floor suite that Liu Hengxuan had stayed in had been vacant for years. But it was cleaned and fresh flowers were changed daily. When the doorbell rang, I instantly lost all sleep. I knew Liu Hengxuan had arrived. But I couldn't help feeling nervous. We hadn't seen each other in 4 years. He was on the other side of the ocean, while I was in the deep house of the Huo family. I never imagined he would do something like this. Especially when Huo Kixin publicly clarified that he was neither married nor had children. To do something so surprising. After all, he was the only child of Uncle Liu, the sole heir of the Liu family. A wave of bitterness spread through my chest. When I opened the door, tears spilled uncontrollably. Liu Hengxuan stood outside, dusted and weary. His coat draped over his arm, dressed in dark clothes, his posture tall and slender. 4 years had passed, and he had become even thinner. Yet his demeanor was so different from 4 years ago. I choked up, barely able to say, "Brother," but Liu Hengxuan stepped forward and pulled me into his arms. Zhou Manjun, his throat tightened slightly, and his Adam's apple moved up and down violently. He wrapped his arms around me, gradually locking me in tighter. Those strong hands, with their defined knuckles, seemed to want to crush me into his bones and blood. When I could barely breathe, he suddenly released his grip. But then, he cupped my face and gently wiped away the tears on my eyelashes. "All right, no more tears. I'm here. It's going to be fine. Why did you have to go through that surgery? What about Uncle Liu and Auntie?" I couldn't help but choke up again. Liu Hengxuan closed the door and casually leaned against it, watching me. "Are you just worried about them?" "Of course. I'm more worried about you." I looked at his thin face, and my heart ached with a deep sting. Even the smallest surgery is still surgery. Every surgery has risks. He's an only child, hasn't married, hasn't had children. What if something goes wrong? What are you worried about? Liu Hengxuan held my hand, but his gaze suddenly froze on my ring finger. In my memory, his eyes always carried a charming smile. But now, they were clouded with shadows. It was then that I realized, the wedding ring hadn't been taken off. The ring I had worn for 4 years, I had gotten so used to it. I had even forgotten to take it off. "Are you worried about me having an accident? Or are you worried that I won't be able to have children anymore?" He curved his lips, smiling in a way that wasn't really a smile, watching me. But his fingers, still holding mine, gradually tightened uncontrollably, trembling. "Brother?" I was a little surprised. The Liu Hengxuan I remembered wasn't like this. "Manjun, don't call me that. I don't want to be your brother." He held my hand and pressed it against his face. "You know, I never wanted to be your brother. We didn't have any blood ties. When our fathers were still alive, the two families were close, visiting each other often. But after my father passed away, and my mother fell ill, our family declined. My grandfather took me in, and we lost contact with the Liu family. But Liu Hengxuan still kept in touch with me, writing letters and flying over during holidays. Then he was sent abroad for studies. Aunt Liu gently told me that the Liu family had chosen a suitable fiancé for him. I was already a grown girl, and men and women are different. I couldn't be like when I was younger, not understanding, constantly clinging to Liu Hengxuan. At that time, I was young and full of rebellious feelings for Liu Hengxuan. But when the elders spoke, I couldn't resist. Without hesitation, I cut off all contact with him. Later, my mother and grandfather passed away. Before they died, they entrusted me to Grandpa Huo, based on their old kindness. During those years at the Huo family, I was in the tender age of adolescence. Naturally, I began to like the handsome and steady Huo Kixin. Grandpa Huo valued loyalty, and after my graduation, he personally arranged my marriage to Huo Kixin. I still remember it. When he nodded, my heart pounded, and my face turned red with shyness. 4 years passed in the blink of an eye. Round and round, everything seemed to come back to square one. Things that don't belong to you, no matter how much you force them, still won't have meaning. When the tears fell again, Liu Hengxuan suddenly lowered his head and kissed the tears from my face. "Manjun, let's get married. From now on, Tongtong will be my only child. Whatever Huo Kixin doesn't want, Lu Hengchuan, will take. I looked into his eyes. They were so dazzling. Like melted glass. They burned against my face. My heart raced. Yet there was an inexplicable sense of comfort. The distant memories of youth came rushing back. Countless times, I slept soundly on his back. Countless times, I jumped into his arms with my eyes closed. Countless times, I safely placed my hand in his. Countless times, I cried and threw tantrums, only letting him comfort me. And finally, that whole night in the heavy rain. He stood outside my grandfather's yard for the entire night. But back then, my pride was my everything. I refused to open the door to see him. Lu Hengchuan, give me a little more time, at least until I've made things clear with Grandpa Huo. After all, Tongtong has the blood of the Huo family. If I want to take custody of her, I still need Grandpa Huo's approval. Alright, I can wait, no matter how long it takes. Some media caught photos of Huo Kixin dining privately with friends. Zhang Moran stood by his side, smiling and leaning towards him. He was reaching out to support her. The paparazzi's composition and lighting were perfect. The couple looked very much like a pair. It caused a stir on social media. Especially since just days ago, he had publicly denied such rumors. Now, the photo seemed like another form of clarification and a slap in the face. My phone kept ringing with WeChat messages and calls. But I didn't reply or pick up. After leaving Tongtong's kindergarten, I went to the mall again. Lu Hengchuan had bought expensive gifts for both me and Tongtong. No matter what, I had to return the favor. Just as I was about to enter an upscale store, I bumped into Huo Qing and a few of her friends. I nodded faintly, bypassing them to enter the store. But Huo Qing called out to me, "Zhou Manjun." She seemed quite pleased with herself, no longer calling me sister-in-law, like she did in front of Huo Kixin. Is something wrong? Did you see the news? Huo Qing lifted her chin, unable to hide her smile. My brother and Zhang Moran really make a great couple, don't they? I nodded. Indeed. Huo Qing froze. Zhou Manjun? Back then, when she used to humiliate and mock me behind Huo Kixin's back, I always ended up secretly crying, unable to hold back my tears. She probably expected me to react the same way now. Anything else? Are you out of your mind? If my brother and Zhang Moran get back together, is there still a place for you in the Huo family? Don't you feel jealous? Don't you care? I looked at Huo Qing calmly. The Huo family never had a place for me in Tongtong, did they? At least you know your place. Huo Qing said this, but her expression didn't seem as happy as before. I didn't bother with her anymore and turned to enter the store. This was a store I'd been to a few times, and I knew some of the sales staff. I was looking at cufflinks, and the sales lady quickly brought out several new styles. They were all the same style I used to buy for Huo Kixin. As I looked at the cufflinks, my thoughts momentarily wandered. He had worn the tie and cufflinks I bought for him that day. When he denied the existence of me and my daughter, did he feel no regret? But I quickly pushed that feeling aside. I'll take a look at these. Lu Hengchuan's style and Huo Kixin's tastes were completely different. I picked two with stronger designs and had the sales lady wrap them up for checkout. When I paid, I suddenly realized. The card I was using was the one Huo Kixin had given me for personal expenses. It was his supplementary card. 4 years had passed unknowingly. He had seeped into every part of my life. And now, if I was going to cut ties, there couldn't be even the slightest connection left. After some difficulty, I refunded and paid again. I also unlinked several cards. When I was leaving, Huo Kixin suddenly called. I thought for a moment before answering. What did you buy in return? He asked directly. I replied honestly. I charged the wrong card, so I switched to another one. There was silence for a few seconds on the other end of the line. When he spoke again, his voice was lower. That card was for you. It's no use now. Zhou Manjun, how long are you planning to keep this up? I weakly curled my lips. I'm not keeping anything up with you, Mr. Huo. I've already left the Huo family. That means I have nothing to do with it anymore. Are you sure? Yes. The phone call was cut off decisively. I stood there for a moment, blocking and deleting all his contact information. Back at the hotel, I first bathed Tongtong and put her to sleep. Then I took the gifts I had picked out and went to give them to Lu Hengchuan. His room door was slightly ajar. I was about to knock when I heard voices inside, low and hushed. Dr. Chen, I want to know when this situation will improve. Will I lose my ability forever? I widened my eyes in shock, and the bag in my hand fell to the floor. Lu Hengchuan quickly hung up and came over. Manjun, did you hear that? Lu Hengxuan. I checked. That surgery isn't supposed to affect that part, right? Lu Hengxuan remained calm. There are always exceptions. Maybe I'm just unlucky. I wiped my tears away. What now? What did the doctor say? The doctor didn't give a conclusion. He just said I should find a girlfriend and try again. I lowered my head, pressing my lips tightly. Lu Hengxuan chuckled indifferently. Don't overthink it. It's not a big deal. How can it not be a big deal? You've managed without it for years, haven't you? But what? Lu Hengxuan suddenly stepped closer. Manjun, if you're worried about your future happiness, I'd be happy. If it's anything else, I really don't care. You know, since we were kids, I've always been like this. Cold-blooded, selfish. I don't care about anything but you. He gently touched my face. Don't pity me. After saying this, Lu Hengxuan put on his coat and walked out. Go get some rest. Stay with Tongtong. I'll be back soon. Lu Hengxuan left. I sat down on the couch, feeling lost, my heart in turmoil. If Lu Hengxuan really meant what he said on the phone, what if he could never be human again? I bit my lip hard and made a firm decision. Then I would marry him. I couldn't bear to let others look down on him, to despise him. I went to see Grandpa Huo. Since you've made up your mind, I won't stop you. There's no reason for us to repay kindness, only to end up hurting the granddaughter of the person who helped us. It's Keeksen's fault. He hurt you and Tongtong. Grandpa Huo shook his head and sighed, his eyes welling up. He was truly a kind elder. But sadly, we had no fate together. You've already repaid more than enough of my old kindness. I held back my pain. I really appreciate all you've done for me over the years. From now on, I won't be able to take care of you. Please, take care of yourself. Remember to bring Tongtong back to visit me, old man. All right, I will. If you ever have any trouble, don't hesitate to tell me. After all, Tongtong is part of the Huo family. We won't ignore her. I'll remember. Grandpa, go now. Grandpa Huo waved his hand and had someone escort me out. As the car left the Huo family's old mansion, it passed by Huo Keeksen's car. His car suddenly stopped, and he got out. But I didn't ask the driver to stop. There was no legal marriage certificate between us. It was really easy to completely part ways. I didn't even need to meet him or say a word. In the deep autumn, Huo Keeksen stood there in a thin shirt and pants. He seemed to be looking at my car as it drove away, standing there for a long time. This time, Lu Hengxuan didn't wait for me downstairs at the hotel. I went upstairs, to my room. But I didn't see Tongtong either. Just as I was about to knock on his door, it suddenly opened from the inside. Then, my wrist was tightly grabbed, and I was pulled inside. Lu Hengxuan? Where's Tongtong? Where did she go? Why are you so hot? I tentatively tried to touch his forehead. But Lu Hengxuan directly pressed me down onto the big bed. Sweat covered his forehead, but his eyes were a deep red. Don't worry, Tongtong is at my place. Manjun, I took a pill today. His hot forehead rubbed against my cheek and neck. It was as if the lava from a volcano was burning me. It's reacting. I feel so bad. Manjun, Lu Hengxuan's dry, burning lips found mine and pressed tightly. But he was awkward, unsure how to take things further. It seemed like the effects of the pill were kicking in. Sweat kept dripping down his forehead, layer after layer. I could sense the intense reaction. It was hotter than his body temperature, pressing against my soft stomach. Lu Hengxuan, I softly called his name. But before I could say more, his lips and tongue entered, claiming mine. His wet fingers pinned my hands to the bed. He kept calling my name, over and over. At the very end, I suddenly tasted something salty and bitter. I didn't know if it was his sweat or my own tears. Manjun, Lu Hengxuan suddenly stopped, staring at me intently. His eyes were bloodshot. In his pupils, I could see a tiny reflection of myself. Shout at me, or hit me, either one, he said hoarsely, trying to move away from me. But my tense body slowly relaxed, losing all its strength. Under his gaze, I closed my eyes. Then, I raised my hand and hooked it around his neck. Brother, I called him like I used to when I was younger. He became intensely stirred. Bowing his head, he kissed me hard. Brother, can I teach you? I held him tightly, easily flipping over and pinning him to the bed. The black shirt sleeve cuff gleamed with a subtle light. That light slid down from the corner of my eye. It passed my collarbone, chest, and flat stomach, then stopped. Manjun, Lu Hengxuan murmured, his eyes burning like a fire. The heat seemed to stretch endlessly, consuming both of us. I bit down on his shoulder, swallowing the scream. Flashes of white light danced before my eyes. My body was lifted, and he carried me into the bathroom. Lu Hengxuan helped me bathe, and when the foam was washed away, he suddenly sat me down on the wash basin. Then, he slowly crouched in front of me. Manjun, I'm afraid I can't make you feel good, so, let's do this first, okay? He looked up at me. I didn't dare to meet his gaze, feeling too shy. I closed my eyes and shook my head. But still, he took my ankle and slowly spread my legs apart. The sky was about to brighten. I lay on Lu Hengxuan's shoulder, breathing lightly. How many pills did you take? Lu Hengxuan answered somewhat uneasily. 1. Actually, he didn't take any pills at all. He just took a few cold showers to make himself burn with fever. But this secret, he would never let anyone know. I don't believe you. I weakly slapped him. Don't take any more pills. I'd rather you take care of your stomach. Lu Hengxuan held me and got off the wet bed. Then, he laid back down on the sofa. He obediently agreed to my request. But still, he started getting restless again. Manjun, I think the effects of the pill haven't worn off yet. We're not doing it, but I really feel bad. If you don't let me take any pills, I definitely won't be able to do anything. So, let me make it up to you this time. My heart softened, and he took advantage of the opening. Manjun, taking the pill, did it make you feel good? I dizzily nodded, answering without thinking. Did it make you feel better than him? I felt like I was floating in the clouds, my mind blank. I thought so. He's 3 years older than me. Men, when they're in their 30s, they're not the same. Unlike me, Lu Hengxuan suddenly stopped talking. And I was so lost in pleasure that I forgot to ask him more. Manjun, at the most intense moment, Lu Hengxuan whispered in my ear, let's go get our marriage license tomorrow. Let's go as soon as the sun rises. Okay? I didn't want to agree so quickly. But if I didn't, Lu Hengxuan wouldn't let me go. In the end, I could only nod with a choke in my voice. Okay, we'll go get the license as soon as the sun rises. Huo Kixin learned this news from Huo Qing. He hadn't slept all night in the old mansion and closed his eyes just before dawn. His mood was at an all-time low. He didn't expect that Zhou Manjun was actually going to leave with Tong Tong. She had even bypassed him and went straight to his grandfather. And his grandfather had agreed to her request, letting her take custody of Tong Tong. What shocked him even more was that it wasn't Zhou Manjun who had leaked the media. The photos of Tong Tong at the Huo family's place weren't only taken by Zhou Manjun. His mother could also take them. At the time, he was so disappointed in her that he publicly debunked the rumors, even warning her without mercy, until he accidentally overheard his mother proudly revealing this secret to Huo Qing. That was when he realized he was the one who had messed up. Huo Kixin had to admit. In that moment, he felt a bit panicked. Even though it lasted for just a short second. Though he quickly adjusted his mindset. He understood Zhou Manjun. She was a simple person. She didn't hold grudges, and she had a kind heart. So he knew, if he went to her personally and comforted her, she would eventually come back to him. After all, she loved him so much, cared about him so much. But what he never expected was that, early in the morning, Huo Qing came to tell him that Zhou Manjun had gotten married to someone else today. That man, Lu Hengxuan, was practically announcing it to the world. He even shamelessly posted on social media that he was married and had a daughter. Bro, what's going on? It's fake, right? It must be fake. It's photoshopped, right? How could Lu Hengxuan marry my sister-in-law? He's the only son of the Lu family. Also, the other day, I ran into sister-in-law at the mall, and she was still buying stuff for you. How could she suddenly turn around and marry someone else? Huo Kixin suddenly looked up. What day was that? Huo Qing stomped her foot anxiously. It was just a few days ago. I can't remember exactly when. Oh, wait. It was probably the days when you and Mo Ran were being secretly photographed. Huo Kixin pulled out his phone, scrolling through the messages from that day. He remembered. He had even called Zhou Manjun to ask about the things she had bought and returned. His heart sank. If Zhou Manjun had bought something for him, she wouldn't have returned it and paid again. The only reason she would do that was if the gift wasn't for him. It was probably for Lu Hengxuan. Give me your phone. He reached over and took Huo Qing's phone. Scrolling through some photos of Lu Hengxuan, he found one where Lu Hengxuan was holding a red marriage certificate. He could see part of his arm, and immediately noticed the 6-pointed star cufflinks on his shirt. The brand was one he liked, but not the one he would have chosen. Huo Kixin set the phone down. He lit a cigarette, more out of habit. Bro, the photo's fake, right? Huo Qing cautiously asked. She felt like she was losing her mind. She had always thought Jo Manjun wasn't good enough for her brother. She felt like her brother had been wronged. But now, Jo Manjun had really left the Huo family. And she wasn't happy about it. Upon careful thought, even though she had mocked Jo Manjun all these years, Jo Manjun never really retaliated. In fact, Jo Manjun was a good person. Even sometimes, their mother would admit it. She would bitterly say that Jo Manjun was very good at winning people over. And even the servants in the house were on her side. You should go back. I need to be alone for a while. Huo Qing didn't dare to stay longer. And quietly left. Huo Kixin felt the house was too stifling. He took his cigarette pack and went to the backyard garden. Some of the servants were talking to the gardener. Ah, be careful with these flowers. They're the madam's favorites. Yeah, she always comes to check on them and waters them whenever she's home. By the way, is the madam and Mr. Huo not getting along? Mr. Huo is being ridiculous, trying to clarify everything. Even I'm upset listening to it. Who knows? I've never seen anyone kinder than the madam. She's never acted high and mighty. The cigarette burned down to the tip, and it burned his fingers. Huo Kixin's hand trembled slightly. The ash fell off, soon scattered by the wind. The voices of the servants grew faint. Huo Kixin looked at the withering flowers in the garden. Winter was almost here, and these flowers wouldn't bloom until next year. But the ones who had left, he didn't know if they'd ever return. And he had lost the courage to even ask. In the 5th year of our marriage to Lu Hengxuan, I finally convinced him to have another child. The entire Lu family nearly caused a riot over his refusal to have children. Aunt Lu cried so much her tears seemed endless. She pulled me aside countless times, wiping her tears. She said, if I had known it would turn out like this. I never should have let us be separated back then. It took so long for her son to finally agree to marry. But now he had a vasectomy and refused to have children. She was heartbroken, raising someone else's daughter as if she were her own. Her heart felt like it was being torn apart, aching unbearably. I honestly felt a little awkward and didn't know how to comfort her. Lu Hengxuan told me not to bother with her. She's materialistic and loves money. That's her own problem. I'm not having kids, and anyone who wants to can have them. Is having children really such a great thing? Great things don't need to be pushed. People are eager to do it on their own. I've already gone through hell once. Besides, I have Tong Tong. She calls me dad. She's my daughter. Everything in the Lu family will go to her in the future. I couldn't help but laugh. Doesn't that just benefit the Huo family? Lu Hengxuan pulled me onto the bed, lying down. Whoever gets the big benefit knows best. After all, I'm not the one still single. I felt a sweetness in my heart as I leaned on his chest and kissed his chin. But I want to have a baby for you, Hengxuan, please. Will you? No. I promised you and Tong Tong that she would be my only child. But Tong Tong wants a little brother or sister. I kissed him, coaxing softly. Honey, please? Just one. Think about it. Tong Tong's a girl. When we're gone, she'll be all alone. What if she gets bullied? Lu Hengxuan seemed to soften a bit. I pouted and acted cute, using all my charms. Lu Hengxuan couldn't resist and agreed. He went through the surgery to reverse the vasectomy. We quickly had another baby. It was also a girl, just like Lu Hengxuan, so beautiful it took my breath away. Lu Hengxuan loved her, but he still loved Tong Tong more. The whole Lu family was overjoyed. Mrs. Lu was a bit greedy and privately urged me to have more. She said the Lu family had plenty of money, and we could afford 10 or 8 children. I was too embarrassed to tell her. The day after the baby was born, Lu Hengxuan went back into the operating room. Later, when we were in bed together, Lu Hengxuan seemed a little worried. I'm in my 30s now, not like before. I'm not sure if I'll be able to after this surgery. I playfully asked, do you want to take a pill? He coughed. I'll try first. I couldn't help but laugh, falling onto the bed. Lu Hengxuan's body came down on top of me. Jo Manjun, if I can't later, don't laugh at me. I hooked my arms around his neck and kissed him. Okay, I won't laugh at you. He cupped my face, suddenly very serious. Jo Manjun, I love you so much. I know. What about you? I lightly bit him. I love you too. A long, long time ago. And for a long, long time to come.